And
Hey, there we
we
go.
are live. Okay, so sorry about that. Yeah, we're sitting here talking, waiting. We didn't get a countdown. That's our excuse, so we're going to stick
I
to it.
did.
So, welcome to our Dish to Diet Face the Feelings panel. I'm Beth Gray, your host. With me today is Sammy D and Zandra. And today we're going to talk about dwelling on the past. Is it a good thing? When is it a good thing? It might be a better question. So first, I'm going to invite Sammy and Zandra to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about themselves, and then we're going to dive in.
So I'm Sammy D. I live in England. I'm the author of My Big Fat Fat, a funny book about dieting, in which I describe my whole life of failed diets and other sort of things I did to myself in the name of looking good. And since then, I've become an advocate of intuitive eating, which is what the Ditch to Diet program is all about. And I'm currently writing a course for Udemy, which I'm kind of into at the moment. So that's me.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. It's Sandra. I'm a former nurse and decided to take on some health coaching. And I'm an eating psychology coach, much like Beth and Sammy, intuitive eating, body wisdom. And I have a Facebook group called Body Wisdom, the Psychology Beyond Dieting, along with my profile page and the business page. And I'm here to help support you getting off of that roller coaster and stop that war with your food.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So when we look at ditching the diet, we end up doing a whole lot of work on the past in order to heal it and move from it. But let's dive into dwelling on the past, because sometimes we get stuck in that. But if we don't go back there, we don't learn the lessons either. So, Sammy, where do we start on that?
So I think in all my studies and research, the common thing is don't dwell on the past. Just, you can't change it, just move on.
Right.
But what's not talked about is how we can learn from it. So there's got to be a certain amount of, going back into your past. And sometimes it can just come from a conversation like, all of a sudden I have sugar in my coffee. And it prompts the question, well, when did this start?
Yeah.
And that's when you can go back and say, oh, that's why.
Yeah.
And you can address the thing that caused that to start happening. So I think, in some circumstances, it's important to, go back to a past event and dwell on it until you learn from it, and then, let it go and decide what you're going to do about it.
Absolutely. And it's a difference between dwelling on it momentarily and dragging it back up time and time again.
Yeah. I mean, there's a danger that if you go back to a certain time in your life, much like you can do a visualization for your ideal future and bring back all the emotions and motivations and feelings, you can also go backwards to a time when, which wasn't so great, and you were commuting for 5 hours a day, or you were working for 15 hours a day, or, your stress levels were over the top. And if you dwell on that, it's possible that you can bring back those feelings to the present. So there's quite a fine line, I think, between going back to that time of your life and realizing why you have a certain eating habit or trigger, and then recognizing if you've brought back any negative feelings and, learning to let them go.
Yes, absolutely.
I think, too, it may not just be an event that's happened in your life. It could be a comment that was made by someone. And my example is I was never heavy as a teenager. Like I was probably about 100 to 110 pounds max.
Mhm.
But because I rode horses and I biked, I was biking 4 to 5 kilometers a day to my friend's house during the summer. So, of course, you've got thighs and you've got calf muscles. Plus, I figure skated during my junior high and high school years. Um, and my mom had made a comment that my skirt was too short and I shouldn't wear it because my thighs were too fat. That was
Wrong
at
word.
15,
Too muscular.
too muscular. 15 years. I was 15 years old when she made that comment. That started me on my path of I'm too heavy. I need to lose the
At
weight
110 pounds.
at 108 pounds.
Wow.
So
Crazy.
so if you look at when you get to the point of why was I always on this journey of trying the next diet? Oh, the next fad diet was out there. I got to try this. I've got to hop onto this because I'm just way too heavy. And what happens is that instead of actually losing that weight, you end up gaining more. And it's just a vicious cycle. But if I would have had someone that would have said to me early on in my young years of why are you dieting? You're 120 pounds max. Why are you dieting?
Yeah.
Had that been addressed, there there wouldn't have been all of this
Yeah.
now.
And isn't it funny how, the tiniest remark can stay with you for the rest of your life? I remember when I was 12 in like 1980 or something, I was walking to the school bus in the morning and my friend was behind me and she said, "Oh, walk ahead of me a minute." And I walked ahead of her and she said, "You walk funny." And it was because my legs were like you, muscular, because I was a gymnast all throughout school. And she laughed at me and she said, "You walk funny." And that's never left me. That's never left me. So, you
Those
know, um, it's nice that we can go back to those things with what we learned today and put them into perspective. But that's something I carried with me for decades.
and decades and
Yeah,
decades.
yeah. And they're the tiniest little comments. And you
Yeah.
kind of think, you know,
I just want to address Stephen's comment here where he talks about his 9-year-old when she's trying on new clothes and asks if she looks fat. It's heartbreaking to hear that she has those issues and concerns. This is such a common thing right now in our young girls. It's heartbreaking to see it happening, and the it's part of the cycle of we've watched mommy diet all the time. Mommy's always watching her
That's been one
food.
of my hardest things, is really being careful with my comments to myself and the way I
That's
treat my body, because I don't want her to see me saying I'm fat,
yes,
especially right now. I mean,
exactly. And it really stems, it really comes from what's their outside influence
yeah.
from not just mom and dad,
Well,
but
there's
it's
YouTube, there's comics,
grandparents.
there's school friends, there's teachers, there's cousins. I mean,
And we have a prominent diet culture on social media.
yes.
that is really affecting all those young girls. And I think if we can do one thing for them is to really praise them, instill into them that they are beautiful the way they are, and reinforce that, you know, that inner goddess that they're trying to develop. And
Yeah, for me with
that's
Miss Six, it's been about saying to her, "Oh my goodness, you're so strong. Oh my goodness, look how much you've grown. That's why you're heavier." Because it's really easy to say to her, "Oh my goodness, you're so much heavier." But I've got to remember why she's so much heavier. She's heavier because she shot up another 3 inches. You know, and so it's really in my language to her, but like you say, Sandra, even more so, the way I speak about my own body is possibly even more important than the way I speak to her about hers.
Yes.
And I think I'm not a parent, but I would say from personal experience, the tiny little things you say sometimes will stay with them forever. You know, like we can all remember our favourite teacher in school when we were tiny and what they said to us as inspirational and motivating. But we can also remember, you know, negative comments. And it's how our psyche picks these things out to say, oh yeah, we'll remember that one.
Yeah.
And it's
I had a wonderful conversation this morning with someone that said that, you know, when you manage to let go and release that emotion, you can release and let go 1,000 thoughts that are tied to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the dwelling on the past actually is very useful and healing. You go back to that past moment, you allow yourself to feel that emotion again, whether it be shame, whether it be fear of rejection, whatever that emotion is, you allow yourself to sit in it and feel it and allow it to pass through, release it, let it go.
Yeah.
And you let go not only of that one moment in time, but every other moment in time.
Yeah.
That got tied to that same emotion and feeling, that somehow you link them all together.
Yeah. And I think, you know, what's also important is something we always miss is to, where situation demands it, is to go back and find those positive moments or funny moments that have stayed with us for our entire lives. You know, that we remember as being funny or uplifting or motivating.
Well, I mean, like, I have one of those. I was 15 or 16. My best friend had a driver's license. I didn't. She came, we were Saturday morning, still in pajamas, and mom and dad asked us to run an errand. And we were like, okay, so when we get to so-and-so's house, are they coming out to give that to us so we don't have to get out of the car? Yes. Okay, we'll go. So in pajamas, we jump in the car, we drive to our friend's house, do the errand, pick up the thing. Well, on the way back, there was roundabouts. Okay. So going around the roundabout, we probably went around it about 3 times, and it was right outside the police station. So we've got these 2 police cars sitting there trying to get on the roundabout, but we keep going round and round it. And then we stop at the lights just past the roundabout with the 2 police cars right behind us, and we did a fireman drill. Now, you know what the fireman drill is when you're stopped at the stoplights? You stop at the lights, everybody jumps out of the car, runs around the car one time, and gets back in again.
Oh my God. Did they breathalyze you?
No, they sat there and laughed because this was 30 years ago, you know, it was just one of those, oh my gosh. Yes, it's Saturday morning and you're still in pajamas.
Yeah, but isn't it nice to bring back that to the present moment?
There was no shame about being in pajamas. There was no body size. This was pure fun of, you made us run the errand. Well, we made it fun.
Yeah. And I don't think we do that enough. But, you know, going back to the current subject, I think it's important to find those little splinters and deal with them.
Yeah. And it is, I mean, like, we all want to be in that happy, positive emotion, but there's a moment for sitting in the shadows, for connecting with sadness or anger and frustration or fear, and sitting with that shame, blame, acknowledging it, putting a name on it. Can you name your emotion? Because that's really important, of being able to differentiate when what I'm feeling is sadness versus what I'm feeling is loss. You know, like, I mean, it's a fine line, but what am I feeling? Can I put a name on it?
Yeah. And what's interesting about what you just said is that, you know, I could say to you, Beth, on this Ditch the Diet program, I eat when I'm sad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you would say to me, well, actually, is it sadness or is it something else? And I'm like, you know, and sometimes we kind of misrecognize triggers.
Yes.
And we told ourselves for 10 years, oh, I eat if I've had a bad day at work. Well, is it really that?
And was it a bad day, or was it just a bad 2 minutes? Let's be real.
Yeah.
And don't forget, too, a lot of the stuff that comes up in the now, like right now, those are things that our subconscious hangs on to. And our subconscious is there to protect us. So it's going to bring that in and say, oh, well, you know, you really need this candy because of this. So you need to look at what's going on with that too when it comes into the now. And why is our subconscious is there to protect us, but we can also reprogram that.
And I think that's the whole purpose of sitting with that emotion and recognizing it for what it is, recognizing that moment in the past. That is not what is happening right now. Okay? Right now, that's not it. I'm feeling the emotion right now. I'm not living the experience right now. And the moment I can sit there and say, well, wait a minute, this emotion is tied to that experience, but I'm not experiencing that right now.
Yeah.
So it's time to let this emotion go so that I can be present in this moment.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it is important to do that work on the past, not because I'm going to drag the past with me everywhere I go. I really want to let go of it in so many ways. Now, I don't want to lose the lessons, but I do want to let go of all that baggage that I'm carrying with me. And we carry that baggage, and I will say this openly, we carry that in our bodies.
Yes.
It might be carried in our hearts as a weight, a heavy heart. It might be carried in an irritable bowel.
Yep.
It might be carried in our fat, in our fascia. There's so many places we store it. And it's really easy to do the diet and lose the weight. But if you have
not addressing any of it,
all the emotional and mental and spiritual work that goes hand in hand with it, you put the weight back on because you haven't dealt with the underlying issues.
Yeah.
And it's not just putting back on the 10 pounds that you lost. Because now it's being proven that anybody that's on a diet used to be that you'd gain back double. Now they're saying that it's around 107% in the 2 years
after the diet. Yes.
After you stop the diet.
And so ideally, you want to find the lifestyle that works for you. And one of the things I've learned in this journey is that what worked for me a year ago might not work for me now. And I have to be ever present in my body.
Yeah. Yeah.
To really pay attention to what works for me now.
Yeah. Because the bikini banana diet that you did 25 years ago, I honestly, today, you will die laughing. I can't remember what I was looking for. I was doing some research, but oh, that's right. I was doing something on My Big Fat Kitchen. I found the fireman diet. Eat like a fireman for 10 days. I'm like, what? Do I have to run up ladders while I'm eating? You know?
I don't know if you read one of my posts on Dish the Diet, Face the Feelings.
I did.
I went through the diets of the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, one of which was called the starvation diet. And I was like, I'm not even going to look it up. I don't even want to know.
I was speaking to someone this morning that is an octogenarian for like 3 days a week. I'm like, why? What?
If it works for you, fine, but does it work for you? And I'm not saying it doesn't. It might work for that person, okay? But if it is an external construct of these are the rules I follow, and my body does not feel good with it, then it's not working. And this is where we really have to get into our bodies.
Stephen says the banana bikini diet. You know what? You could probably Google that and you would find it. While I was researching for my book, I found the Jesus diet.
What is that? Bread and water?
I can't even remember.
Wait. Do they show how to turn the water into wine? That's the only thing I want
to know. I really hoped that they would have, but I went to the page and it quoted some verses from the Bible, and you know, I think it literally was unleavened bread and water, the Jesus diet. Seriously, and I'm like, what? That's just the world has gone nuts.
But we have so many, and I think that if you're going to try something, and I don't advocate diets, but if you're going to try it, think about it as an experiment for your body.
Yeah. Because certain
does it work?
Diets might have a cleansing effect, or might have, you know, a good effect on your gut, or might clear out some, you know, whatever else is going on inside. But really, you know, the whole concept of it is a bit warped in my opinion.
For me, like a water diet, I can do that for 3 or 5 days, no problem. Now, there is, on day 1, there's hunger, and on day 3, you might feel really yucky as everything that was stored in your cells is coming to the surface. But the beauty of something like that is, after day 3, it resets your immune system, and now you're in a new place. But it's not you're going to do that as your diet and lifestyle. It is literally a fast, and a fast has a start date and an end date.
Yeah. I do like fasts actually, because spiritually they make me feel good, even if it's just for a day. You know, they make me feel good, but they're not for everybody. And I think,
and also, what are you feeding your body?
Yeah.
Not in food, but your mind, your thoughts, your emotions. What are you have an immune system which provides you with safety and security from whatever you ingest and whatever you breathe in. But where are your boundaries? Do you have good boundaries in relationships, in responsibilities? Because it is the whole picture of what's happening in your life, not just, you know, calories in, calories out.
Yeah, and I'm giggling while you're talking, Beth, not because of what you're saying, but because I'm thinking of all these diets I remembered. And you know, one of these diets, and people really subscribe to this, is the liver detox. right?
Yeah.
That's your liver's job. You don't detox your liver. Your liver detoxes.
Mm-hmm.
That's its job. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm sure I've looked at that diet and thought, that looks really interesting. I'll try that. But your liver's job is to detox. You don't detox your
No,
liver.
I mean, there is things that you can, if your liver is struggling, you'll notice it. Believe me, you'll notice it. Okay. And there's foods that you can eat that give your liver a rest so it can do what it does best.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a difference from recognizing that to thinking, oh, I have to detox my liver. No, what you need to do is give your liver a rest so it doesn't have to do so much hard work.
It's funny how they put a whole marketing spin on it, isn't it?
And I think, too, when we go back to looking at past events and incidences that happened in our lives, what effect are we taking from there into our present moment?
Yeah.
And how do we shift those thoughts into being of service to us now? And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, but if we look at what's of value, what's of service to us, we change our thoughts. We change that programming that we had from that event, because any event in our life creates a program in our subconscious.
Absolutely.
It takes up a file.
Yeah.
So just back for a second, back to Steve's comment there about his 9-year-old. For me, is to reinforce how beautiful she is, how pretty she is. Look at all her positives that she has and really build her confidence. Where I'm staying, he has a granddaughter. She's 6 years old. And he came back a couple weeks ago from seeing them. And he said, oh, the little one is really getting fat.
Oh, no.
And my first thing was like,
please tell me you didn't say that to her. Please tell me that's not the language you're using around this child.
And that's exactly what I said. And he said, oh, yeah, we talked about it at the table as we were eating.
Oh,
and I went,
being talked about, not to.
Thank you guys very much, because you have just set this little girl up on a path of, I'm fat, I'm not worthy, my body is not any good. It's wrong, it's bad.
And there comes that disconnect between mind and body, where I think one thing, but my body is somehow separate from me.
Yeah. Yeah. So our language as adults, the kids have enough peer pressure and remarks made by their peers. But our job really as the parents or the aunts or the uncles out there, right?
It's an unconditional safe place. That's what we should be.
Yeah.
That's our responsibility.
Yeah, and it's really giving them that unconditional love that they are beautiful. They're beautiful inner people, and really
but also,
building
I mean,
that
like,
inner.
if they were in an unhealthy lifestyle, they need more activity, they need more movement. You got to look at
the whole picture.
The whole picture, because the thing is that you're sitting there telling this child they're fat, but then you're saying you need to sit down and be quiet.
Exactly.
Don't run around so much. No, don't do such and such. Well, this kid has the energy to burn, and you're telling them to sit down.
Mm-hmm.
How do they burn that? If we're always telling them stay inside, if we're always telling them you can't go do that because I don't have time right now. I mean, I'm so grateful and thankful we have a backyard with a trampoline. Worst case scenario, go jump it off.
Exactly.
Okay.
Find something that they can take that stored energy that they've got that's building, and yeah, it might mean you're going to take 20 minutes out of your day.
Yes.
But that 20 minutes that you take out of today is
Will
going
have
to
repercussions throughout life. Absolutely. Because it's not telling them, it's showing them. And I mean, I don't know if some of you saw the video I shared yesterday or the day before yesterday of a mom giving instructions to her son of, well, I want you to put your fingers like this. And then I want you to put your fingers on your chin. And every time she told him, put your fingers on your chin, and she did this, where did he put his fingers? Exactly where she did. Okay. He didn't put them on his chin. He put them here. And she's dying laughing as she's videotaping this because he's a 15 or 16-year-old. He's not a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. You know, this is a fully grown kid. And he's going, I don't get it. What's so funny? I'm doing it.
Amplify how powerful a parental role is.
release.
Well,
Because if my dad walked in here now, and I'm 50 in a couple of days, you know, if he walked in here now and he said cows are blue, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because he's my dad.
And
right.
so, you know, when I look at something like, what's my example for activity? What's my example for energy levels? What's my example for social interaction and the way I treat other people? How do I speak to other people? Hello. What?
It's the garden hose, kitty.
Yeah, the garden hose is done. Now she's in a towel and cold. Okay, well, I'll be done in the call in a couple of minutes, and then I'll come and help you find clothes, okay? All right. The call is going to be done in like 2 or 3 minutes, okay?
I'll count to 60.
No, do not count to 60. No, that's not how this works.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I'm not a parent. There's a reason for that.
They are charmers.
Yes, indeed. So final thoughts then, I think.
Yeah. My final thought is take that experience from the past, look at it, analyze it. If you need to, reframe it by what you remember, but remember your memory is not maybe remembering exactly what happened, because our memories distort and we only remember what we really want to remember.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I would say as a final word, you know, it is important to go back and find these little splinters, but, you know, have someone experienced to talk you through them.
yes.
In order that you know when you've addressed them, you've recognized and learned from them, and then they're not hanging around in the present. I think it's important to have a conversation with someone that knows how to do that.
Yeah.
Much easier than if you were doing it on your own. So, you know, talk to a professional like Beth.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of techniques that you can use for that. I mean, like, I love using EFT. I love using affirmations. I love using different visualization or NLP techniques. It's like there's so many ways of doing it. The important thing is doing it, because it's really easy to know about doing it. It's a different story to actually sit and do it.
And Beth's new profession for 2020 is ventriloquism. Like,
all right, guys, I got to get going. Somebody wants something to eat and drink.
Bye.
Bye.
Mommy, I want something to eat. I want something to